Great. Well, without further ado, it's my absolute pleasure to be sitting in front of you today. My name is Richard Robinson. I'm the Managing Director of Oyster Catchers and also e-consultancy. And I'm here today with Lex Bradshaw-Zanger, who's the Chief Marketing and Digital Officer of L'Oreal UK and Ireland. But as a special treat, you can all get your cameras out, take a photograph of Lex, because this is the last public speech. You can say you were here when this happened, that Lex will be giving before he leaves the UK and moves to become Chief Marketing and Digital Officer of L'Oreal South Asia, Pacific and MENA. So he is moving on the 1st of May?
Yes, starting Monday.
Starting Monday to 35 markets that cover the fastest growing, populous and young demographics in the world. Now, for the uninitiated, you do have a real treat with Lex on stage today. L'Oreal is the global leader in beauty. It has 37 brands that many of you will be familiar with, including Garnier, Yves Saint Laurent, Kiehl's, Maybelline, La Roche-Posay, and most recently the purchase of Aesop. 150 countries, 88,000 people. Importantly for today, one of the top 10 investors in UK media. And their first quarter results were 10.28 billion euros, I've found out. So it's fair to say that we have one of the most exciting people in marketing and digital leadership sitting here today.
No pressure.
And that's not me. So no pressure at all. So we've called this talk today the third wave of marketing transformation, and we're going to touch on data as well. Waves, though, I want to start there because we've got metaphors of waves. Just tell me, what are they and what do these waves mean?
Well, thanks for the introduction. I'm feeling the pressure of sort of having to be here and be in Singapore on Monday morning and all of you. Yes, so the waves. I think I talk about the waves because everybody talks about digital transformation. And for one, I think it's marketing transformation, not just digital. But we started with this sort of general view of digital transformation. And then suddenly we had to carve out specialities to make it more bits that you could bite off. And so I think the second wave was an e-commerce transformation that we started pre-COVID and then COVID accelerated. And then I think the third that we're in right now is really around data, and we talk about data and beauty tech. So digital, e-commerce, and then data, and there's probably more coming.
So tell me a little bit about this, the first wave of digital transformation. I mean, the third is why we're all here to hear about that, but I just want to understand, when did L'Oreal move into digital transformation? So how early did you catch the wave? And what was the biggest learning that you think we can all take from that?
So early, I think, was probably the key. You know, L'Oreal's strength, and it's not my strength, this was our chief digital officer at the time in Paris, was all about leaning into new things and building the skill set and the competency before you hit the peak of the wave. So it was, I think, 2014, 2015, we had a chief digital officer right at the top of the organization and really leaning in and saying, okay, what do we need to do around media? What do we need to do around content? How do we look at platforms and understand where consumers are? And that vision was one piece, but I think the real key is how you put people into the organization. And that was actually why I joined L'Oreal. You know, I was at McDonald's before L'Oreal. We had a very different view of how we put people and skill sets into the org. And Lubomira's view at the time was you need digital competencies, experts across the whole organization. So no silos, integrated with the business, and really injecting expertise.
Brilliant, thank you. And it's interesting because when I'm giving talks and people ask you the question about, tell me somebody you can think of in the CPG sector who is brilliant at e-commerce. L'Oreal comes up time and time again as a bit of a poster child. So the second wave, you talked about e-commerce transformation. So sort of same question, which is, what's the biggest learning you took from that personally? But then also, what do you think we can take from the wave of e-commerce that you all went through?
Yeah, no. So e-commerce was definitely, again, one of those things you see coming and you have to lean in and you have to overinvest. It takes a manufacturer, it takes a retailer, whatever, months, quarters, years even to get a product online and get ready, stock it, product pages, media. Takes a consumer, 60 seconds to take their wallet out and input their credit number on board. So we had to be ahead of the game. And then we had to understand that e-commerce it's everything we know about commerce and everything we know about marketing all together. Yeah. And so it was this point about content, visuals, media, eventing, engagement, and bringing all those different pieces together. And that probably the fact that we were further along that journey meant that when COVID hit and suddenly everybody went online, at least we were set up and we understood what was going on. So we were able to move much faster in terms of shifting the media mix, creating more content. The channels were already there and the muscles were already trained.
Yeah. And so the third wave, which is why we're all, I assume you've all collectively come here to this session, data transformation. So ever since I've known you, you've talked about the need for marketing to embrace data-driven marketing. But how does that happen? I mean, it sounds remarkably simple, but we know it's not. How does that happen?
It's a difficult one, data transformation. It's probably as dangerous as digital transformation because it means everything and nothing at the same time. I think at the core, I always like to say that marketing is a combination of art and science. And with the data component, we're just trying to upweight the science piece. Then we're looking at it as how do we build tools, how do we use data internally to make our marketers better, how do we augment our marketers, and then at the same time, how are we using that externally? I think it comes down to, as with most things in transformation and marketing at the moment, it comes down to people and skill sets and how they're sitting in the organization. So we've definitely massively consolidated all of our data roles in the organization. We've pulled all of the different people together. We work on infrastructure, we work on use cases, we work on teams, we work on how we bring it to market. So there's a lot of different things going on. But above all, I would say it's the data culture across the whole business. How do we start to get marketers into a space where they think, okay, I understand not only that I'm responsible for creating data, so it needs to be clean up front, but also how do I use it, how does it augment me? We're in a world where the marketing landscape, marketing is getting more and more complex. And I think the first hurdle is getting marketers to understand that they can't work on instinct anymore. And so data is augmenting their capabilities to make decisions. But it's not making them redundant. On the flip side, it's not making anything redundant. So two key areas. One, internally, how do we use that for tools? How do we analyze our media mix? How do we look at our sales? How do we understand what's happening in the market? You talked about the fact that we've got 36 now, soon to be 37 brands with ESOP. I have no idea how many SKUs, but that's a complex space to work in to understand what's going on. You need data, you need analytics to do that. And then on the outside, we have a lot of, we bought an augmented reality company called Modiface in 2018, and they power all of our services. That's data behind that, whether it's all the data that they use to be able to power the services, or whether it's when the consumer engages and their data. So there's lots of different use cases and places where data is a key part of marketing today.
So you talked about the internal, you talked about the external. Where does it start? How high up does it need to? I mean, you're a senior guy, but how high up to get this third wave moving does it need to go to get the buy-in to be able to put the internal, external assets in place?
So I think that's where L'Oreal, and that's way above my pay grade, has been exceedingly strong in terms of saying, okay, when you need to move the organization, you need people leadership at the top.
Yeah.
We did that in digital. We have a global leader in data. The data lead for the UK sits in my team, but they interact with finance, they interact with operations, they interact with all of our brands. And that's really important because it's not just about the technology and the engineering and the pipe work and SQL and ETL and countless other acronyms. We had so many acronyms in marketing, now we're just creating them in data.
Yeah.
But no, so it's super important because, we were talking about this before we came in. Any transformation, I'll steal your quote, it's 90% people and 10% technology. And I think organizations that go into these transformations and think, I'm going to buy something, integrate it into the organization and hope for the best, that's a route to failure, versus thinking about people, skills, how they work together, and the vision for the whole organization. Data's not just about the data people. It's about every single marketer and everybody in the whole organization beyond marketing as well.
Yeah. So you touched on, so you have these sort of two areas. One of them is internally, and you use the phrase people and skill sets. And you were just touching on that as well, about this isn't about one group of people trying to do data and one group of people to do analytics. What are if you could imbue all of us with the right skill sets for what's coming, what would those skill sets be? What is it that you think is becoming almost critical for marketing departments to absorb into them?
So I don't think it's the same for everybody. We used to talk about I-shaped marketers, then T-shaped, and now we're talking about M's.
Yeah.
I like the M because there's these three legs, these three pillars. And so if every marketer has three different skill sets, not all the same, then suddenly they create this beautiful honeycomb of interaction, how they all fit together. But you're right, there are some fundamental pieces. I think creativity is one of them, and creativity not in the agency and artwork sense, but more in terms of how you look at problems and how you look at challenges. Data's got to be one, but what does it mean to have a data skill set? What does it mean to be data savvy and in a data culture today? It's a combo of understanding you need clean data, knowing how to use Excel, knowing how to read charts and the wrong charts. So it's very, very loose. And then everything else is an expertise. Are you a media expert? Are you a content expert? Are you social engagement? All of these different things. So I think, the context, the idea that a marketing generalist can know everything today is impossible. Yep. So we need to build these combinations of different skill sets that come together. We need specialists and generalists to create a marketing department that works.
So this third wave is going to hit the beach, and then calm seas after that? What happens after the third wave? Is there a fourth wave? Do these waves keep coming?
Oh, but just like the sea, they never stop.
So give us a prediction that, fingers crossed, somebody will write this on a tweet somewhere, and it'll come back to haunt both of us in about 10 years' time. What will come next? No, so what are some of the things that we should be thinking?
You said that I was moving to Singapore. I already packed my crystal ball last week, so it's very difficult to see what's coming from a business point of view. You think about the Gartner hype cycle. There's always these technologies. Clearly you're fishing for me to talk about the metaverse or AI.
Of course.
And I don't.
Well, I don't know. You can talk about whatever you could talk about potatoes.
You want to talk about the sea, and now we're talking about fishing. We're taking the metaphor way too far. But no, there's a lot of tech out there. I think that the trick is to get in very deep and play with things and understand how they work, and to very quickly get to the point about how is it relevant for the business and how is it relevant for brands. That's why I hate talking about digital on its own, because it's bright, shiny objects and it's not driving the business. So I think let's look at AI, let's look at the metaverse, let's look at ChatGPT, but let's figure out what people are doing and how it works, and figure out what the actual real human consumer brand interaction value is. And maybe that will then tease out what the business value is and what this fourth wave, fifth wave, whatever the next waves are. But there's a reason that marketing is not completely industrialized, is that there's a piece of art to it, and art and experience. So the waves are going to keep coming. We're going to be transforming forever. That's
brilliant. And then the last few minutes we've got, I'd love to get some advice, if I may. And the others can listen to the advice as it comes. But what should we all be focusing on? When you think about why we're all here today, the future of brands, and we think about use of media, and we think about the use of digital, what are some of the things, if I was launching a brand tomorrow, that you'd be advising me that I need to be thinking about, which you think are going to be pertinent and important?
So I have this sort of phrase that I keep throwing at our marketers, and we've got a lot of marketers, you can imagine, sort of 37 brands across the building. But I sort of say, marketing hasn't changed, but marketers must. Mm-hmm. And what I try to tell them about that is that they need to go back to fundamentals and work on fundamentals. And fundamentals is brands, it's consumers, it's about how they interact, it's about insights. It's not about tech, it's not about bright, shiny objects. So I think, if we just talk about brands and consumers, understanding what's at the core of brands, understanding brand codes, distinctive assets, understanding consumers, consumer insights, how we talk to them, the creativity involved in delivering messaging, understanding the fundamentals of media. We talk about excess share of voice and say it works or it doesn't work. These fundamentals are really, really important. And the key is just to understand how they exist in the new ecosystem today, whether that's TikTok or digital outdoor or connected TV. The fundamentals are still super, super relevant. And I think it's dangerous sometimes to say that somebody is a pure digital marketer or a pure social marketer without hooking onto some of those.
Perfect. I think we've got time for one question. Who would like to be brave enough to ask Lex the last question he's going to get in the UK? Yes, over here in the green. If it's a spicy question...
Oh, no, have you got that? No, mine's not. Yours isn't a real question.
I want to know what L'Oreal product you couldn't live without.
Wow. The answer is not tomato ketchup.
Last question in the UK.
Can I go with two?
You can. I don't know why I decide that rule, but you can.
Because I didn't change fragrance for a long, long time. I used Armani forever. And Armani's one of our brands, but there is some new Prada fragrances that are amazing. And the second one is there is a really nice moisturizer from Vichy called Mineral 89 that has some volcanic stuff in it, which is amazing. There you go. But 37 brands, there's a lot to choose from.
Okay, so Sophie, Chief Marketing Officer of giffgaff, your question.
In 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask how you see marketing evolving with the growth of product in the mix. So from a product marketing perspective, how those mixes of marketing fundamentals still exist from a product marketing view. I'm not sure you can do that in.
You're going to have to define the product marketing point of view slightly in 10 seconds, then give me.
So it's all right. We won't blow up when we get there. So find it.
Well, just in terms of how product-led growth is becoming bigger and bigger, certainly from tech and digi brands. So looking at how product starts to iterate and respond to consumer insight, and the balance of where the strategic growth comes from between product and marketing. I'm just interested. See, that's a massive question that I shouldn't have asked at this point.
Well, so I was briefly at Facebook, and so that's why I was asking the question, because product marketing, I think, in terms of how you physically design products and iterate products, yes. You know, in CPG, we call that product innovation, and we don't use the word marketing to try and not confuse things. I think, I don't think it's marketing in the same way we talk about advertising and communications, which is what we're trying to talk about. But definitely, you know, I work with a lot of startups and do a bunch of kind of mentoring for startups, and forcing them to understand consumers and not just have a brilliant idea, but to stress test it against the market and to really have a plan is super critically important. But I think it's a slightly different skill set than maybe marketing communications, even if there's lots of overlap in, you know, consumers and fundamentals and all these things. So that was sort of half cheap answer in 10 seconds to your question.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Brilliant. So just gives me great pleasure. Thank you, Lex, very much. This is your final event, and we wish you bon voyage and good luck in your move to Singapore on Monday.
Thank you. Thanks very much.